Welcome to Last Minute Essays 47. Having recently finished Hitman 3 and therefore the entire world of Assassination Trilogy, I realized how big part of me the series has been and for how long now. I haven't talked about it much, but Hitman has always been like comfort food for me. I can't really put a number on the amount of times I played every single mission in Blood Money to its completion as a teenager, but it's definitely a lot. Which should not be that surprising now that I think about it, considering how much I loved stealth games as a genre pretty much all my life. There's just something incredibly empowering about a plan coming together and fooling everyone in the room, sometimes with some generous saves coming, but regardless. The new trilogy is multifaceted. It is a loving send-off to the legacy of Agent 47, who first appeared on home computers in the year 2000 and propelled the studio IO Interactive and his home franchise from niche Eurojank to a AAA industry mainstay. It is also a distillation of all the lessons learned in that time, capturing the best parts of old games and washing hands off of some missteps. It is taking all the loose ideas that were attached to 47 across the years and weaving them into a single narrative rope to tie everything together. And last, but not least, it is one of the best games of all time, not just in its own genre, but in general. Not just on merits of polish and quality of life, but also sheer technical scope, innovation and uniqueness. As such, I think it's only fair that the entire series gets a small retrospective before we get to the 3 newest entries, showing how the series evolved over time and where all those beloved elements came from. Hitman Codename 47, released in the year 2000, was the first game developed by IO Interactive. Following the story of the bold, sharp-dressed assassin with a barcode tattoo on the back of his head that we all know and love, Hitman introduced most of the structure that the series became known for. Agent 47 works for the ICA, a secretive organization of assassins, and in each level he has to take down a guy or two. Going for the holistic slaughter approach is impossible. Not only are you horribly outgunned in a game where the main character is as vulnerable as the NPCs, there are no easily available healing items either. Not to mention, the ICA takes fees from you for every civilian witness or worse, casualty. If the cleanup costs more than your contract was worth, they deem you more of a liability than an asset and terminate your employment. So you need to approach the situation in a way that gets a bullet directly into the target's skull and, ideally, keeps everyone but you none the wiser about the situation. A large part of this is the ability to don a disguise and blend in. Choke out the target's chauffeur, take his clothes and plant a car bomb in the vehicle right next to his guards. Just don't get right up into their faces or they'll realize that a Caucasian dude with baby blue eyes is probably not working for the Hong Kong triads after all. This was an experiment of a game and it shows. Most of the levels have one viable solution: get to this roof and snipe the guy. Try and poison the triad boss, but uh-oh, his bodyguard tries it and now you have to chase the target. You're now in a jungle where no disguise will help you, avoid enemies like it's a Metal Gear Solid instead. A lot of ideas, a lot of them really cool and groundbreaking, especially for the very start of the 21st century, but not all of them are winners. As mentioned before, there is a whole money system incentivizing you to keep a low profile. The funds earned can be used to prepare for the next missions. This element fell off, opting for more in-depth ranking instead, but I always liked it. If I'm doing this for the money, show me the money. Plot-wise, there isn't really much to write home about either. 47 is a clone made out of the DNA of a bunch of criminals that served together in the French Foreign Legion, and the entire game was actually his creator employing the ICA to get rid of the sample donors. All the missions are either killing them or killing people linked to them to create an opening first, which, quite honestly, is a really cool level of thought given to the setup and how missions can be tied together into strings of story relevance. It's also pretty nice that IO Interactive realized real early on that being an assassin is cool and not horrifying if all your targets are absolutely irredeemable scum. Either way, 47 finds his birthplace in Romania, grabs a minigun and blasts through an army of Mr. 48s as well as his nominal dad. Should have just let the kid grow up and go on with his life, Otto. Do I recommend playing Codename 47? Not really. If you're interested in gaming history, it's a really cool origin point for the idea of social stealth and the series' unique approach to interacting with the world, as well as the globe-trotting nature of the missions taking place all over the world. But everything it does is done better by its sequels. It does introduce you to series mainstays like Diana or Agent Smith, but the relationship with 47 does not have any real depth, so it's easy to infer what's important from context in later titles. Banging soundtrack though, go check that out at least. Up to a certain point, all of the tracks were composed by Jasper Kidd, whom you might also know from, say, Vermintide, first few Assassin's Creeds, or partial work on Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Quite the resume. Hitman 2 Silent Assassin showed up in 2002, being pretty much a refinement of the ideas from the first game. The levels were much bigger, often allowing for different approaches to the target. If you play it smart, even going in guns blazing is often viable on lower difficulties. 47's arsenal expanded and the game lets you keep all the collected weapons between missions, even keeping them in a little shack for all the collectionists out there. Gun is the money system, with a ranking system judging you based on your efficiency, stealthiness and amount of collateral damage, with the highest possible ranking being Silent Assassin, same as the subtitle of the game, which became yet another mainstay of the series. It also introduced a live map, letting you track everyone's movement in real time, rather than having to skulk around and scout out the area, though the information is cut down to just the target on the highest difficulty. Also things you would kind of expect from a stealth game, like picking down keyholes and lockpicking. I saw people claiming that this is the highest point of the series as late as 2012. I also sincerely believe that these people are delusional and have not played that game more than once in a decade, if at all, but it is undeniably a huge step up for the series, and arguably the true origin point of its greatness and influence on the gaming world. Unfortunately, the levels, while beautiful and intricately designed, are kind of, well, cut up. So if you have to, say, kill two twin brothers, one at the bottom and one at the top of a skyscraper, these are gonna be two separate levels. And 47 just loses his disguise and all gear in between. Like, bruh. I know you need to load them separately, but come on. Not all levels are winners either. For example, you have two whole missions of approaching your target's castle in Japan through a snowstorm, and the way snipers and such recognize you seem really finicky. And just like with Codename 47, there often seems to be one correct approach, with anything else being a challenge run or something you can do for fun. It also means you have to find the agency pickup on the map to get map-specific gear like a bomb or something, or softlock yourself. However, I have to say, these are some cool set pieces, like smuggling a sniper rifle to a building opposite of your target and looking down the sides and waiting for visual ID, purposefully botching an open heart surgery, or sneaking up to a hacker with a fire axe while avoiding all the Doritos bags on the floor to not alert him. Oh yeah, did I mention it's somewhat morbidly funny? Though it did land flat in one case with some less than flattering portrayal of the Six. Oh yeah, one more point of contention. Living up to 47's new standards, you get a chloroform rack to non-lethally knock out people other than the target. Problem is, you need to keep it close to their face for a long time and they still wake up a few minutes later and ruin your day. I appreciate the idea, but it kinda blows. Taking place sometime after the original game, Silent Assassin introduces us to 47 retired and hiding in a small church in Sicily. Shaken by the truth of his origin and questioning his own agency and whether he possesses a soul, the assassin decided to find peace in religion, only for some Cosa Nostra goons to kidnap his priest friend and demand ransom. Having nothing but his suit and two guns left over from the work at the ICA, 47 contacts his old employers again to John Wick himself back into the killing scene. Now seriously, this scene of digging up his past from under the floor reminds me somewhat of the first John Wick movie. I wonder if the game had some influence there. This attempt at humanizing 47 and giving him character development was quite fun actually. It's no masterpiece of literature, but recontextualizing the game as the agent trying to save someone he cares for and spiraling down into the job he knows best as his leads go thin, despite the newfound doubts and reservations he has about his trade, is an interesting take on the character that was previously an asexual blank slate at best. The Catholic influence on 47 bleeds into the soundtrack, which replaced the droning synths with a booming apocalyptic orchestra, chorus and all. You know, before every game started having a forgettable orchestral soundtrack because that's what movies do. It's definitely hard to call Silent Assassin's soundtrack forgettable when starting the game greets you with this. The plot is only kinda there for the rest of the game. The gist of it is that the kidnapping was orchestrated by the brother of one of 47's dads to force him out of retirement, who then used 47 to get his hands on a nuke to sell it to interested parties. Once again, it all ends where it started, with 47 painting the walls of the church with the blood of his new boss and all his bodyguards, and hanging a crucifix he received from the priest on the door. Realizing he can't escape his past, so he might as well do what he's good at his own terms, rather than being manipulated again. Do I recommend playing Silent Assassin? Hell yeah! It's an amazing game with memorable settings, some great moments, and a really fun gameplay loop. Just don't be a tough guy, play on normal difficulty before you learn the maps, and you can probably get it real cheap nowadays. In 2004, we were graced with the third title in the series, Hitman Contracts. Much darker in tone than all other previous entries, it starts with 47 killing Ortmeyer and showing how he escaped the asylum at the end of the first game, and then takes you to find a kidnapped girl and kill a dude celebrating getting off the murder charges on a loophole during a rave taking place in a slaughterhouse. The music reflects this shift in tone quite well too. Technically there isn't much to write home about, it's Silent Assassin with more polish, better graphics, bigger maps, all of them giving you a target so no more get to point X deals, some much needed quality of life tweaks like sneaking not being slow as molasses anymore, or the anesthetic being replaced by a syringe that still only works for a time but at least the animation for it is mercifully short. A lot of the levels are a remake of ideas from Codename 47, but now with a more open approach and simply more to do in each area. And why are these level remakes? Because the plot is 47 writhing in pain after a job gone wrong and him getting a bullet to the liver. So it's more like unconnected ruminations of the world's best assassin on his old jobs, taking his brain to the darkest of places. So it's a bit of an expansion of 47's history at the ICA, a bit of a retread. The final mission has 47 get up and ready himself for French SWAT flooding the building, expecting to die but not letting his professionalism leave a job unfinished. The cop organizing the raid was his target, and if he's going down as a professional. So you can either blaze through the gunfire, good luck, or bamboozle the cops to sneak out and pop one in the skull of the officer, then leave the district. Amazing set piece, really memorable. I had to restart it like 50 times before figuring out what the hell I'm doing. Do I recommend Contracts? Yes. I believe it's a step up from Silent Assassin. Sure, half of it is a mission pack retread, but it's a very good mission pack retread. Though I can see how that would be a bit boring if you are playing these games back to back. Not much to talk about in a video like this because of that. After another 2-year gap, in 2006 we received the game, the legend, the best title the series had to offer for 10 years, Hitman Blood Money. This was a huge milestone for the series in pretty much every aspect and is, to this day, one of the best stealth games of all time. Though not without flaws, I can just preempt the rest of the section and say you should absolutely play Blood Money. So, what makes it so good? First of all, you are given way more options right out of the gate. 47 always has 2 used lethal and sedative syringes on hand, which you can use to spike foot or just jab someone in the throat. The effect of the sedative is now permanent unless someone finds the victim, letting you get at these guys from some poor sap early and plan afterwards. Or you can punch them in the face to the same effect, though that does make them a witness. You can distract people by throwing coins around, which is as fun as it is busted. You can hang out on top of elevators and use the iconic piano wire to just straight up hang the target and then pull them up to hide the body. You can also hide bodies and yourself in containers and closets. The game also tracks kills that look like accidents. Oh no, the target fell off a balcony, how tragic. Oh gee, the glass bottom jacuzzi broke, I told you it's a safety hazard. The levels are larger and more open than ever, and the simulation of the people in it even more precise. It's not just guards on patrol and civilians doing their thing. There's things like a cop skulking around a teenage girl's room, or actors rehearsing a stage play moving between the scene and break rooms. This, in turn, allows you for an unprecedented freedom in approach to your targets. Sure, you can go with the cool set piece of switching a replica gun in a stage play for a real model, or you can smuggle a sniper rifle to some construction scaffoldings and do your work from there. You can just poison the wedding cake that the groom keeps tasting, or you can put 47's church experience to work, dress up as a priest and strangle the fucker in front of the altar after everyone turns around, with the bride who is totally not your client sign in relief, finally! And so on and so forth. There are only 3 notable exceptions to this freedom, that being the tutorial level, the quote-unquote final boss, and one shootout with another assassin which just screams, oh god, we made a really cool shooting mechanics and most players won't even notice, let's add a gun duel here. The money system comes back, awarding you for clean play with resources that can be used to upgrade your tools of the trade, including the Books gun! God, I love this cumbersome piece of shit, I want to hold it in real life. Walter W2000 showed up in all prior titles, but this time it is your sniper rifle of choice. Aside from that, you can also get more health, faster lockpicks, intel on the level, all the good stuff. Another thing that was introduced was a notoriety system, which meant that if you shot a dude in the open, 47's face would be all over the newspapers and guards and targets in the next mission would recognize you. You can pay to silence the press, but the system sounds cooler than it was in execution, barely coming into play on a normal run and requiring a full save wipe to see different possibilities, and is only tracked for a given mission once. Though the newspapers showing what happened and how the hit went are very cool, and reading them was always joy, even if the grammar in the Polish version of the game was completely broken due to how many variables it took into account. The newspapers also contained jokes, allusions to future or past missions, and if you did the deed completely quietly and made it look like an accident, it even is framed like an obituary rather than an assassination. Very, very cool. Speaking of cool, the level size and variety is amazing as well. The game mostly takes place in the USA this time around, but even then you got bio weddings, addiction rehab clinics, a suburban home housing a witness protection program beneficiary, and the fucking White House. The guards are also much more lenient on you trespassing in areas close to the publicly available spaces. They'll just tell you to get lost, chumley, and leave you alone after you comply, making the entire thing much more believable and cohesive. Plot-wise, Blood Money is definitely the most ambitious title so far. The end of contracts alluded to a group directly targeting the ICA, and the story here centers around said group, called the Franchise. The cutscenes jump between two perspectives. The first is 47 being given new targets, and, despite earning obscene amounts of money in the game, living in a Spartan empty basement with only a pet canary to keep him company. The other is a journalist interviewing a former director of the FBI, recounting how they followed a trail of 47's assassinations in an attempt to catch him. Only problem is, the details start diverging more and more. 47 kills assassins who were trying to kill a politician during a Mardi Gras parade, but this two-faced bitch claims 47 was the one attempting the hit, for example. And the truth, while not very complex, has to be inferred from those discrepancies and the bits and pieces you can catch when listening to the dialogues of NPCs in the levels or events mentioned on the sidelines of the newspapers you get after each level. It's such a cool framing device, really elevating a simple story of conspiracy to something quite memorable. We also get to see what happens when 47 is pushed against the wall in this one, not just personally but on a wholly systematic level, with his entire support network in the form of ICA getting destroyed piece by piece. It explores a ruthless side of him that was always there implicitly, but not quite like this. Target pleading for his life? Sorry boss, it's the job. A mailman delivering a message marked with "Kill the messenger"? Pop. That poor canary that 47 grew close to, neck snapped the second it seemed like it compromised their position in what seemed like a raid on his hideout. The poor journalist whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time? You guessed it. Stop it! Stop! We also get to see 47 as vulnerable. After the long years of working together with Diana, he is comfortable turning his back to her, only to be poisoned in turn. But what looks like Diana saving her own skin when the agency is gone and giving 47's genetic material to the franchise on a silver platter, turns out to be an act of trust put in the assassin, as the poison turned out to be a sedative. And with a kiss and two guns placed in the coffin, she gives him an opportunity to get rid of the franchise in one fell swoop, as well as some unfortunate priest and journalist. The whole theme of conspiracy and higher powers working in the shadows that can only be inferred by common people by reading between the lines, both in the form of ICA and the franchise, bleeds into the soundtrack as well, with the track Apocalypse having Latin chanting alluding to the Illuminati and the world being controlled from the shadows for ages past. It's not quite as grandiose in the game itself, but it's clear that this is where the idea first appeared to be reintroduced a decade later. Side note, before we move on, but they made this game run on PS2 pretty much unchanged somehow. Sure, the resolution was lower and the save file took up a solid 1/4 of that console's standard memory card space, but still, fucking black magic right there. And then, after 6 more years, in 2012, we have Hitman Absolution, the black sheep of the series. So, this project was fucky even before the release. The trailers were about 47 mowing through a house of guards with the use of walls and doors to then target Diana? And another trailer was about fetish costume as assassins targeting him. And they tried to replace David Bateson as his voice actor. The last one in general caused a ton of backlash. You don't just replace an actor that was portraying a role for over a decade. That would be like anyone but David Hayter voicing Snake. Oh, right. They did replace the voice actress for Diana, but her original VA was 63 at the time and she shows up physically as a middle-aged woman at best, so I kinda get it. The one from Absolution gets replaced in the Trilogy too anyway, but we'll get there. Oh yeah, and Jesper Kid no longer did the soundtrack. The final product is, well, off to say the least. If you expected them to build upon Blood Money. Worst part is, I can see what they were going for and I agree with most of it in principle. But the execution is So this time let's break it up into ideas and what went wrong. Hopefully my divergence from the formula will turn out better than Absolution did. Idea 1, a more plot-focused title. On paper I like that, and Blood Money already showed how to do a perfect structure for that. Agent 47 is not an expressive person, but he is the one pulling the trigger on a bunch of extremely colorful individuals. So if the game went the way of Golgo 13 or Columbo, focusing the narratives on the targets before the player enters the scene, it would absolutely rock. But instead, they went with a Bond movie approach. 47 is captured by the bad guy who is too stupid to just kill him, you need to avoid cops in the street searching for you, and so on. This leads to abysmally linear level design with only one exit from each stage and missions split into several stages of approaching the target. And yes, the gear resets between them 10 fucking years, and they repeated the same mistake. But this also leads to a cascade of other issues. The save states were done away with a checkpoint system, which isn't exactly generous. The kills have a cool set piece assigned to each, which usually is the only legitimate way to kill the target. It's a return to the worst issues of Codename 47 and Silent Assassin, but with more mechanical polish. Which is also why I said that the people who claimed SA was the best in the series around the release of this title were fucking liars. Idea 2. 47 going against the ICA. Once again, a cool concept, having to face the ever-present sinister former employer as the biggest opposing force so far. And as a favor to Diana, a person that was his handler and one might even say friend, to save a child from having to face the same fate as him. Too bad it's handled by presenting the opposing force as the ICA boss being a fucking idiot going rogue and trying to repeat the plan of the franchise from Blood Money. Yes, we have to get rid of a few bad apples from the International Organization of Contract Killers. And honestly, the whole plot revolving around making genetic super soldiers got tired by this point. 47 always had some conscience and people who would give him pause before pulling the trigger, but he needs a squad of characters around him to portray that. The man has the expressiveness of a stone slab, and that's why we love him. Idea 3. More mechanical options. The game expanded 47's vocabulary of actions quite a bit. No need for sedatives, just choke people out. No need to constantly check them up, you have the instinct GPS vision showing you people and their patrol routes, which I would consider changes for the better as they allow you to improvise on the fly rather than save scam. Only issue being, the instinct thing is a limited resource, which you regain by choking people out, which is kinda silly. And you need it for disguises to work because suddenly every cop knows how their entire precinct looks like. Oh sure, you can turn on the purist mode, disabling the option. Would be a shame if levels were built around it before it was introduced though. And it also introduced some peculiar options like a Red Dead bullet time to line up headshots. Okay, man, I could go on, but I really don't want to. I don't remember playing this game, it's a black hole in my memory with some screams about all these conflicting parts ringing out from time to time. The one cool thing it introduced was the contracts mode, letting you set a new target on a map and challenging people on the web to beat that level in a specific way. A very cool idea, shame the level design doesn't facilitate it at all. So, in conclusion, do I recommend Absolution? It's better than Codename 47, but no. It's a mess of game design, writing and theming. Granted, it's not lacking in a technical fidelity, it meets the quality standards of the 7th generation consoles. But on the other hand, it meets the quality standards of the 7th generation consoles. And it has no box gun. Fucking travesty. There were also 2 movies and some novels, but I don't give a shit. For a while, there was silence. And in 2015, as I was watching an E3 stream instead of studying for an exam that would turn out to be my academic downfall, Agent 47 showed his bald head again. And it was the most glorious 3 minutes of pre-rendered footage I've ever seen, wordlessly introducing a handful of people, and as 47 is doing cardio in the mountains, the music picks up, hints to how each of these people will die are shown, and finally... God, I love this trailer. Anyway, the newly released Trilogy has a neat gimmick of all being back portable. If you have all 3 games in your library, you can just install 3 and enjoy all the missions at the newest version of the engine with all the quality of life improvements and some fantastic optimization. As time moves ever forward, I will treat all 3 games as one for the sake of brevity. Just like 47 had 5 dots, the Trilogy was built from ground up with the DNA of the past 5 games. Each of them played a pivotal role in creating the new games, but they are their own separate being, more than a sum of its parts. First of all, hey, have you ever heard Warren Spector, who worked on games like Deus Ex and Thief, talk about his ideal game as an RPG contained in a single city block? Rather than create a game vast like an ocean but deep as a puddle Bethesda, he envisioned a perfect game as a small, self-contained world with infinite depth of what you can do in it and what you can learn about the characters. The new Hitman Trilogy is 16 such city blocks, and some smaller bits to that. That's right, motherfuckers, these games are immersive sims, don't fucking at me, you know in your soul that this is true. Each map is a sprawling giant encompassing a large building or a part of a city, letting you visit every nook and cranny to see the staggering amount of detail put into each and every one of them, or listen to people having conversations around you. Sometimes relating to the target, sometimes to the world at large, alluding to backroom dealings or people you might meet later. Sure, you can just beeline it to the target, but you might as well skulk around in the attic to find some juicy secrets, or rummage through the apartments of people living in Sapienza and find an inflated crocodile in the bathtub. You're just dropped into the world and asked to fulfill the goals by any means you can find. You won't find everything on one run, a lot of things are mutually exclusive, but as you replay the level you can start at a different location, or with different starting gear, or have something smuggled in place by your ICA contacts. Or just do the whole thing in 47's iconic black suit. Or find a good vantage point to just snipe everyone. Fuck it, you know the level now. You can do it. A lot of things were taken from Absolution and improved upon. With a much larger world, the GPS vision makes more sense, and it is now unlimited and contained to the nearest surroundings. There are still people who can see through your disguise, but they are marked individuals and always inconveniently placed, so you need to think around them. The cover system is intact, letting you skulk around in a hostile area, and access to infinite chokeholds makes way more sense when you need to switch disguises regularly to make a plan fall into place. You also get the blood money coins, and the level design in general pulls the most from that game, but bigger. Oh yeah, and you get all the goofy hanging chandelier that can be dropped on people from that game as well. The game has regenerating health, but considering stealth is the main mode of operation, I didn't even notice that until the final level, in which I just decided to stop being nice and go apeshit. Some levels play around with the formula, especially in 3. What if you were the hunted one and had no intel? Or what if you just played detective in this crusty-ass British manner? To not let you get lost in the depths of these levels, the games introduced story missions. Diana stays on the line with 47 at all times and provides you with tips that can be used to get closer to the targets or outright kill them. Hey, this guy is frustrated nobody knows how to make his favorite drink. Oh look, this dude looks very similar to you. How nice. It seems this guy in a flamingo costume is meeting the target to blackmail her later. This way, you can make your first foray into the level a somewhat guided one, while also making it memorable. And if you don't like the HUD guiding you to each piece of those puzzles, just turn them off. And then, after doing the level, you can look at the list of challenges and realize the levels allow for some goofy bullshit, like dropping one target on top of the other one, killing them both. Speaking of goofy, I absolutely love the way 47 is portrayed in these missions when in disguise. He's eerily competent at everything he tries his hand in while making barely veiled threats non-stop. Oh yes, Miss Yakuza Fixer, this fugu sushi is to die for. Delightful. The contracts mode is back, and with the insane size of each zone, it is much more viable at achieving what it sets out to do. Not much else to say here really, it's just an endless well of fun if you tire of the challenges already set by the base game. On the story front, this is a soft reboot. Early on it tells us that the asylum 47 came from was reduced to rubble, meaning the events of Codename 47 didn't exactly happen the way they did. But right after that you are welcomed by a cutscene showing that the agent has been at work for 20 years, replicating some of the iconic targets from past titles. It is the experienced, worldly 47 we all know and love. It's just that the main plots of the other games haven't happened, so he remains an enigma to himself and everyone else. Side note, but I love the fact that he is well over 50 years old and still the protagonist. It might be the fact that with each year I realize the feebleness of my body more and more, or maybe I'm just tired of coming of age stories, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the story as the games are recent. The trilogy forms a single, 3-act narrative, which is, all things considered, pretty good. It attempts everything the previous titles did with much more success. Humanizing 47, giving him people he cares for and personal stakes. Introducing a shadowy world-spanning Illuminati-like threat, giving everything a slight sci-fi twist that implies the world is largely similar to ours, but much more advanced and sinister if you have financial means to see beyond the veil. Actually, who am I kidding? It's exactly the same as the real world. And just like in the real world, everyone who knows what a net worth is has got to go. The targets themselves have the previously mentioned Columbo/Golgo approach to how they're written. Rather than treat the player to 20 minutes of cutscenes before getting to the scene, you can just infer everything while being there. Because you can do that in video games, they're a unique kind of art! First time in a level, listen to people in the streets talk about why they're rioting against the target. Second, stalk him and listen to him talk to his daughter on the phone. Third, let him escape and find out what that leads to. Just amazing webs of connections and intrigue that you can piece together one clue at a time. And they expand outside of the current mission as well. It really shows that the devs had a clear idea of who to include, when and why. The world feels cohesive and some controversy mentioned in Paris can suddenly make more sense when you get to Bombay. Gone is the problem of adding more and more conspiracies into the plot with each sequel. So, is Hitman 3 with the 2 other games backported perfect? Well, as much as I wish I could say it, no. One minor nitpick I have is that some conversations in the crowds are subtitled, but only some. Sure, you get the most important bits, but not all the wonderful work that went into this world, and that blows if you are hard of hearing or not confident in your language skills. I miss people talking in more languages than just English, though I realize the linguistic accuracy probably wasn't all there in the previous games. And, much more importantly, these games are online only, and keep connected to the servers to track your progress and introduce more content like elusive targets, one-time missions that are available for a limited time and then gone. And you know what else is gonna be gone one day? Those servers. So, if they don't introduce a patch turning that shit off and rolling everything into those games, one day this absolute miracle of a game is just gonna disappear. And that fucking sucks. But until then, do I recommend this? Yes, what do you think? Go get these games in the next Steam sale or whatever and enjoy this amazing refinement of a long-standing game series and a great immersive sim to boot. Good luck, viewer. I leave you to prepare. Or not, wait, I need to make an outro. I got a solid idea for 3 more videos and I hope to get them all out by the end of the year, but 2 of these involve getting into new titles, so it might not be a regular monthly schedule. Anyway, please look forward to a game about painting, a general topic that drives me mad in video game discussions, and a visual novel. As always, huge enormous thanks to my Patreon supporters, now visible on the screen. Their patronage lets our agency remain impartial. If you would like to join the board, you are sincerely invited to do so. And if not, perhaps you'd like to tell your friends about the work we do.